In the shadowed streets of Gloamstead, where secrets slither between the cracks of cobblestones and whispers travel faster than the wind, Detective Althar Coldmere hunts the truth. Tonight, his hunt has brought him to the edge of revelation and peril. Althar stands beneath a flickering street lamp. The pale light casts long shadows on the cobblestones. A chill breeze rustles his trench coat as he carefully examines a torn piece of parchment in his hand. The street around him is empty, save for the distant echoes of the night. His gaze falls to the cryptic message on the torn parchment. Uncertainty crosses his face. He murmurs to himself, a clue left behind quickly, or a warning to turn back. Tucking the parchment into his coat pocket, his eyes scan the empty street with suspicion. The faint sounds of the city fade into an eerie silence, and the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. Earlier that evening, Constable Grayson had arrived with a grim report, his voice laced with tension. Constable Grayson. Inspector Coldmere, another one. Third this month. A message written in blood. This time it's outside the Hollowwick Theatre. And the victim? Althar asked. Constable Grayson. Gone. Like the others. No body, no witnesses. Just the words. The light knows. In the dimly lit constable's office, the weight of the news pressed down on Althar. He stared at the blood-stained letter in his hands, his mind racing. His fingers tightened around the edges of the paper as the words, "The light knows," echoed ominously in his mind. Hollowwick Theatre stood as a decaying monument to a bygone era, its crumbling walls and empty seats now hosts to something darker. Althar stepped through the theatre's grand yet decaying entrance, his boots echoing in the silence. Dust swirled in the air, and the musty smell of old wood filled his nostrils. A single light flickered in the distance, barely illuminating the shadows in the corners of the forgotten space. Althar's eyes narrowed as he moved deeper into the theatre, following the faint trail of soot leading backstage. A sudden creak echoed through the theatre. Althar's hand instinctively moved toward the revolver at his side. His senses sharpened. Every shadow in the room now seemed a potential threat. He spun, his hand on the grip of his revolver, his body tense and ready. Every muscle was primed for action as a shadow flickered in the distance. A figure darted from behind the stage curtains, disappearing into the labyrinth of the theatre's backstage corridors. Althar followed, his breath steady but quick, his thoughts already calculating his next move. Back in his study, Althar pored over the small, leather-bound notebook, each page more cryptic than the last. But one passage stood out. The lantern's light reveals the guilty, but only to those who dare to see. The Serpent's Guild strikes where shadows are deepest. Althar whispered, "The light knows. It's not a warning. It's a weapon." Sitting at his desk, Althar flipped through the worn pages of the notebook, his brow furrowed as he deciphered the cryptic symbols. Then, his eyes froze on a passage that sent a shiver down his spine. The words hung in the air like a threat. "The light reveals the guilty." He murmured to himself, the weight of the revelation settling in. In Gloamstead, shadows may hide the truth, but Althar Coldmere will always uncover it. Althar walked away from the chaos of the underground lair, the glow of his lantern casting long shadows behind him. His figure was a silhouette against the gaslit streets of Gloamstead, the mystery still lingering in the air. But one thing was clear. The truth was always within reach, no matter how deeply it was hidden in the shadows.